Have you ever wondered how much of your daily behavior truly belongs to you, and how much is carefully shaped by those around you? The truth is, the crowd often whispers into our minds, steering our actions and decisions away from our better judgment without us even noticing. In a world full of hidden pressures and silent influences, many of us discover too late that we've lived by someone else's script, guided by the wrong crowd. This book is your map out of that unseen maze, a guide to reclaiming your mental clarity, your choices, and your future. If you're ready to break free and become the author of your own path, you've just taken your most important first step. Choose Your Path: How to Stop Being Influenced by the Wrong Crowd, written and published by Mindset Liberation. Chapter 1. Spot the Subtle Pressure. There is a quiet force shaping our choices every day, a force so subtle that we hardly ever recognize its presence until we are already entangled in its webs. This force is the pressure exerted by those around us, sometimes friends, sometimes colleagues, and even complete strangers, influencing things as trivial as the way we dress, to decisions as significant as the beliefs we hold or the limits we place upon ourselves. The roots of this mental health challenge run deeper than one might expect. From early childhood, we're hardwired to seek acceptance, and our survival instincts drive us to blend into the tribe for fear of being left alone. Yet today, that instinct can unknowingly undermine our own happiness and mental well-being, pulling us away from our core values and authentic desires. Research shows that nearly 70% of individuals admit to making decisions just to please others, even when it goes against their personal satisfaction. In a world connected by social media and instant messaging, this dynamic is magnified. We are constantly bombarded with images and opinions about the right lifestyle, the right opinions, and even the right emotional responses. The resulting mental strain can be exhausting, often manifesting as anxiety, depression, or persistent self-doubt. Leading psychologists point out that chronic exposure to peer pressure, invisible and relentless in modern life, correlates directly with feelings of isolation, internal conflict, and a diminished sense of control. Picture this: a young professional on the brink of promotion watches her colleagues laugh over after-work drinks, sharing cynical comments about anyone who works too hard or stands out too much. Although she wants to impress and push her creativity, an unspoken expectation hangs in the air, warning that ambition may lead to alienation. She hesitates, afraid to lose her place within the group, and over time tones down her enthusiasm. Or imagine a college student who secretly edits his social media posts, removing anything unconventional to avoid ridicule, even though it means erasing pieces of himself he actually loves. Such scenarios are not unique. In fact, they are echoed in countless workplaces, classrooms, and communities, quietly shaping lives beneath the surface. Despite how universal these moments are, few recognize when it is happening to them. The pressure to conform rarely arrives with warning bells demanding attention. Instead, it creeps in through mild jokes, disapproving looks, or subtle exclusions, training our minds to crave agreement rather than authenticity. The result is a quiet defeat, a slow erosion of our true preferences, as we lose the thread of what genuinely matters to us. Mental health professionals warn that unrecognized peer pressure not only dampens our personal ambitions, but over time can lead to a disconnection from our own feelings, leaving us anxious and unsure in even ordinary moments. Beneath the surface, this subtle pressure can alter the arc of our entire lives, changing how we approach our work, relationships, and sense of self. Yet seeing the invisible marks it leaves is the essential first step. Once you recognize how insidiously this force works, you begin to spot the small ways it shapes your daily choices and begin forging a path back to your own authentic mind. The real truth is that this influence only thrives in darkness. The moment we bring it into the open, its grip begins to loosen, creating space for a future defined by your own voice, not the echoes of the crowd. Subtle social pressure is like a whisper wrapped around your thoughts, coaxing emotions until they barely feel like your own. It's not just about altering your day-to-day decisions, but about molding how you see yourself and how you relate to the world. When these invisible influences go unchecked, people begin to second-guess not only the small things, like what to wear or how to laugh, but even fundamental beliefs, ambitions, and values. On an emotional level, the sense of being quietly manipulated or judged can lead to a persistent, almost haunting anxiety. You may begin to feel uneasy in crowds or hyper-aware of every word before it leaves your lips, constantly evaluating how you might be perceived and whether you truly belong. Psychological research has long shown that this environment of invisible pressure is far from harmless. Within a group, people experience a drive for social harmony that is as powerful as any survival instinct. Studies conducted by Dr. Solomon Asch in the 20th century demonstrated how even obvious truths could be denied if everyone else in the room insisted otherwise. Participants routinely doubted what they saw with their own eyes, instead agreeing with obviously incorrect statements from a group out of fear of seeming different. This isn't ancient history either. Recent studies at Stanford found that individuals faced with group opinions differing from their own showed measurable changes in brain activity, a neural conflict between truth and the intense need for acceptance. This battle often produces a storm of emotions: guilt when you resist, shame when you conform, and disharmony that festers beneath the surface and eats away at mental well-being. Case after case bears out the impact on relationships and decision-making. Take the story of Marcus, a talented graphic designer who loved bold, vivid artistry. In his workplace, however, muted palettes were the norm, and his team subtly mocked anything too bright. At first, Marcus's frustration was barely more than a sigh at the end of the day. Over time, it became a chronic tension that spilled into his relationships. He withdrew from friends, always wondering if he was too much. The pressure seeped into his self-esteem, casting doubt on talents that once brought him joy. Soon, Marcus found himself declining projects that would showcase his originality, all to blend into a group whose standards weren't truly his own. His identity softened around the contours of the crowd, and a kind of emotional numbness set in, sapping both passion and pride. Why do so many people surrender to these hidden influences, even when the price is their peace of mind? At the root is a fear that isolates us, the terror of rejection and the aching need to matter to someone, somewhere. Our brains are finely tuned through centuries to notice even a flicker of disapproval, a slight pause in conversation, a wary glance, a missing invitation. This alert system, once vital for communal survival, now works against us in civilized life. We crave acceptance so fiercely that we often forget that disapproval from the wrong crowd should hold no weight on our self-worth. Instead, choosing their approval becomes another chain, binding us silently and steadily to patterns that do not serve us. As the consequences mount, so does the urgency for change. The erosion of self-esteem, the foggy confusion over decisions, and the disruption of genuine relationships form a complex knot that only grows tighter with denial. We end up protecting a false harmony with others at the cost of our own mental clarity, unaware of how deep the roots of conformity run. But there are signs, dark but discoverable, guiding hints hidden within everyday exchanges and gut-level discomfort. In the next section, we will uncover these warning signals that most people miss, offering you the awareness necessary to begin reclaiming your mind and your direction. When subtle social pressure invades the mind, its effects go far beyond momentary discomfort, weaving itself into the habits and perceptions that shape day-to-day existence. The manifestations are often insidious, disguised as ordinary conduct or cautious, prudent decision-making. You might sense a faint dissonance at social gatherings, noticing your voice gets quieter or your laughter a beat slower, always aligning itself to the rhythm of those around you. At first, the concessions feel insignificant, a silent nod in agreement, an opinion left unspoken, an outfit chosen for the easy approval it receives. Yet beneath these small decisions, something more profound is at work, something that begins eroding trust in one's own judgment and self-worth. Detailed scenarios bring this reality into sharper focus. Consider the case of Jenna, a high school student passionate about classical music in an environment obsessed with the latest trends. Over months, she finds herself declining to join conversations about her favorite composers, instead pretending to enjoy genres that hold no meaning for her. With every unexpressed preference, her confidence falters, replaced by a gnawing anxiety every time she faces her peers. This pattern seeps into her mood and self-view. Her visible enthusiasm fades and is replaced by detachment, a defense mechanism against expected ridicule. Meanwhile, in another city, Ethan, an early career professional, sits in meetings swallowing his creative suggestions. Each time he conforms, his frustration sharpens until resentment simmers beneath the surface, clouding his motivation and attitude well after the workday ends. Their experiences do not appear dramatic to outsiders, yet both Jenna and Ethan teeter on the edge of a growing disconnection from their own passions, numbed by the daily pressure to fit in. Recognizing these manifestations is often the most difficult challenge. Unlike a visible wound, this mental health issue operates quietly, manifesting as uncertainty, second-guessing, repeated withdrawal, or chronic dissatisfaction with your own choices, while the root cause remains elusive. You may notice yourself reviewing conversations in your mind, picking apart statements to determine whether you said the right thing. Friendships suddenly feel staged, and achievements lose their satisfaction if they did not follow the expected script. Even moments of rest become heavy with the expectation to meet others' standards. These are the warning signals: hesitation, guilt for simple preferences, exhaustion from wearing masks, that mark the subtle chains of unhealthy influence. Why is it essential to observe and name these issues? Because awareness disrupts their hold. In facing an adversary shrouded by invisibility, merely shining a light onto its tactics becomes an act of personal power. As soon as you identify the patterns, those repeated sacrifices of authenticity, the sense of diminished joy, the creeping self-doubt, you plant the first seed of change. Healing cannot begin while illusions persist. The act of simply acknowledging these experiences releases you from thinking that your discomfort is unreasonable or your anxiety unfounded. With clear eyes, you begin to see the architecture of the matrix that has quietly restrained you for years, and start to imagine a life not built around fearful adaptation, but honest self-expression. The journey to freedom from these invisible pressures does not start with grand gestures. It starts here, in the simple yet radical act of recognition. Take a moment to reflect. Can you see traces of Jenna's silence or Ethan's resignation in your own life? Pay attention to when you hesitate, when your real self goes silent, and when you act for acceptance rather than fulfillment. That discomfort is not a weakness. It is your inner wisdom asking to be heard. As you close this chapter, remember that understanding this silent influence is only the beginning. Truly escaping its grip requires discovering and defining your own values, the subject of our next chapter, where we will explore how to build a strong sense of self in the face of external pressure. Before you go, consider sharing your thoughts, personal stories, or ideas for new directions. Every insight strengthens our Mindset Liberation community's journey toward authenticity. By daring to see clearly, you've already taken the first step, a step toward a self not defined by the crowd, but by your own unwavering truth. Chapter 2. Know what you stand for. Change truly begins the moment you decide to stop drifting with the current and plant your feet firmly in your own beliefs. The unmistakable force that anchors people against the sway of social pressure is a clear sense of personal values, a quiet compass that points unwaveringly to what truly matters. This inner clarity doesn't develop by accident. It emerges from honest self-examination and the difficult but rewarding act of sorting out one's own priorities from the expectations that press in from all sides. It is the very foundation upon which authentic confidence is built. Countless studies by psychologists and sociologists show that individuals who identify and affirm their core values consistently report higher emotional stability, greater satisfaction in relationships, and improved mental resilience in the face of external influences. In short, knowing what you stand for is more than a philosophical exercise. It is a practical shield that preserves mental health amid life's challenges. The origins of a strong sense of self are rooted not only in culture and upbringing, but also in the conscious choices you make as you grow. As children, the majority of beliefs are simply absorbed. Family traditions, school lessons, or messages broadcast by the media slide quietly into place, constructing an initial template for judgment and behavior. However, adulthood demands something more: the courage to critically examine these inherited values, retain those that serve your deepest sense of purpose, and gently discard the rest. Consider the story of Daniel, a young software developer who was raised in a family that equated success exclusively with wealth and status. For years, Daniel chased promotions and pay raises, wrestling with a nagging dissatisfaction that no accomplishment could quiet. During a particularly overwhelming period of work stress, he realized he'd never paused long enough to ask himself which markers of success actually mattered to him. By taking time to reflect, experiment, and reconnect with experiences that gave him a real sense of pride, like helping others, mentoring colleagues, and nurturing creativity, Daniel soon defined a personal value set that helped guide every critical decision that followed. The trajectory of his life changed as stress was gradually replaced by a sense of alignment and personal satisfaction. Expert insights underline this point with remarkable clarity. Dr. Carol Dweck's research into mindset theory at Stanford University reveals that people grounded in their authentic values demonstrate greater resilience when they face setbacks or face conflicting opinions. Rather than feeling threatened by group disapproval, value-driven individuals process negative emotions more quickly, recalibrate their decisions, and stand firm without simmering self-doubt. In both professional and social contexts, this stability builds trust, both in others and in oneself. Surveys confirm that those who regularly revisit and reaffirm their beliefs report higher confidence and a sense that they are the driver, not the passenger, in their lives. Confidence is not something you are born with, but something you cultivate with practice and intention. By taking time to know what you stand for, you move from being at the mercy of others' opinions to becoming steady and self-assured. This path may ask you to confront old fears or let go of beliefs that once felt safe, but the rewards are vast and lasting: a resilient spirit, honest relationships, and a mind at peace. As you embark on this next phase, remember, your values are not just words, but the strong bones of a life lived on your own terms, shaping actions and feelings day after day. This is where lasting change begins. Rooting your life in clearly defined values is a method that works because it transforms the foundation of every choice, every reaction, and every relationship. The science behind this approach is as robust as it is inspiring, and the testimonials of those who have made this shift reveal just how powerful it can be. When your values act as anchors, you create a framework in your mind that consistently guides your emotions and actions, even under pressure. This stability is not merely a philosophical comfort, it is a proven tool for mental health. Neuroscientists have found that the conscious reflection and articulation of core values activate regions of the brain associated with self-regulation and resilience. When people are reminded of their foundational beliefs before encountering stressful or tempting situations, their stress responses diminish, and their decision-making becomes not only more rational, but more aligned with long-term well-being. The urgency lies in understanding a crucial truth. The world seldom grows quieter or less demanding. Only by sharpening this inner compass do you ensure you are not perpetually lost in the noise. Consider the transformation of Priya, a marketing professional who found herself internally battered by shifting company cultures and the subtle imposition of values foreign to her true self. Early in her career, Priya adopted whatever attitude or work ethic was praised within her team, resulting in constant tension. If kindness was mocked, she restrained her empathy. If overwork was glorified, she drove herself to exhaustion. This shifting of persona drained her not only mentally, but physically, resulting in recurrent burnout. Priya finally reached a crisis where her anxiety peaked and her sense of self seemed to blur. What changed everything for Priya was a deliberate pause and commitment to unearth what actually mattered to her, apart from professional expectations or social applause. She kept a daily reflection journal, dissecting decisions and situations where she felt either authentic pride or lingering regret. Rather than accepting or rejecting ideas based on immediate consequences, she measured them through her values: integrity, care, and creative honesty. Over several months, Priya noticed a change not only in her well-being, but in the quality of her presence. She stopped agreeing for the sake of agreement, instead offering thoughtful input, even when unpopular, because she could articulate to herself and others why her perspective mattered. Stressful meetings felt less like moral battles and more like opportunities to express her truth. The boundaries she drew were grounded and natural, not defensive, and her energy steadily shifted from anxiety toward calm assurance. Academic evidence supports this kind of transformation. In a groundbreaking study from the University of California, participants who completed value affirmation exercises before engaging in tasks with high peer scrutiny reported not only lower anxiety, but increased persistence and performance compared to control groups. This effect wasn't fleeting. It lasted for months, cementing patterns of resilience. The reason is simple but profound. Having articulated values means you're less likely to bend to external whims, and more likely to filter criticism, advice, and influence through your own beliefs first. This ability to pause and check what truly matters to you, rather than fleeting group opinion or approval, is a shield that cuts through doubt and paves the way to authentic living. Without a core of personal beliefs, the social pressures described in previous chapters easily overwhelm resolve, leading to confusion and chronic dissatisfaction. But the very process of clarifying your values becomes an active, daily defense against this erosion. By choosing deliberately, by reflecting with intensity, and by remembering what makes you whole, you create a mental climate where resilience thrives and where conformity never feels like a necessity, but a choice, and one that you know exactly when to decline. Turning the understanding of your values into real-life action requires both intention and patience, but each small step has the potential to yield a powerful sense of control and possibility. Begin by setting aside a few quiet minutes with a notebook or journal. This is your space to dig beneath routine and reflect. Write about moments in the past week when you felt proud of your actions, no matter how small. Notice the details. What did you do? Why did you feel that surge of pride? Try to do the same for moments that triggered regret or uncertainty. This pattern seeking helps you uncover the values that really matter to you. Pay close attention to common threads. Maybe you value honesty if you felt proud for telling the truth under pressure, or perhaps compassion shines when comforting a friend felt more meaningful than any formal achievement. It is in these private reflections that your truest priorities emerge. Once you have a preliminary list of values, maybe 3 to 5, give yourself permission to clarify them with short, direct statements. For example, if one of your core values is creativity, describe precisely what that means to you. Perhaps it is seeing and solving problems in unique ways, or sharing original ideas even if they challenge the status quo. Write these definitions in your own language and keep them visible in a place you'll encounter daily, like on your bathroom mirror or on a note in your wallet. The act of defining your values with clarity helps engage your memory and make them ready to guide your day as real tools, not abstract ideals. With your values clear and present, move on to a daily intention exercise. Each morning, before the day becomes hectic, read over your value statements and choose one to honor with intention. For example, if integrity is your focus, decide on one action, no matter how minor, that will let you live out that value. This could mean giving sincere feedback at work, making time to help someone, or simply choosing not to compromise when your instinct tells you something feels wrong. Take note of your feelings after following through on these intentions. With time and repetition, these consistent actions begin to feel effortless, gradually strengthening your ability to stand firm even when others pressure you. To build momentum, reward yourself with immediate recognition for even the smallest wins. When you uphold a value, even in a minor way, jot it down, say it aloud, or share it with a trusted friend. Feel the satisfaction of taking your own side, and remember that momentum comes from the sum of these often overlooked victories. You are not waiting for a momentous test to prove your character. Every day offers dozens of opportunities to practice being your truest self. With each repetition, hesitancy begins to fall away, replaced by a sense of ownership over your actions and a growing pride in your decisions. As you continue this journey, remember that self-discovery is an ongoing process. Gentleness and self-encouragement are as valuable as accountability. If you slip, reflect on what happened and recommit to your values. Every pivot is progress. These practices may feel small, but they build your resistance to the pull of the crowd day by day, reinforcing the sturdy core that can weather any social storm. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to step away from unhelpful influences with real confidence, a skill that turns inner clarity into outward action. Before you move forward, consider subscribing to Mindset Liberation, sharing your thoughts in the comments, or offering suggestions for future topics. Together, we create a space where everyone's personal growth matters. In taking these first, genuine steps to live by your values, you lay a foundation that sets every future choice on a path that feels truly yours. Chapter 3. Step away with confidence. The moment you decide to step away from people or situations that drain your spirit, you reclaim your right to peace and ignite a personal power that was always yours. This chapter unfolds a liberating truth. Distancing yourself from the wrong influences is not an act of weakness or selfishness, but a profound act of self-respect. The origins of this idea stretch back through centuries of wisdom and modern science alike. For generations, healthy boundaries have been revered by philosophers and psychologists, recognized as the backbone of strong relationships and resilient mental health. Yet far too many people struggle with the guilt, fear, and hesitation that come from letting someone down, not realizing that protecting their own well-being is essential to authentic living. Stepping away often requires more courage than standing your ground, because our brains are wired to seek attachment and cohesion. According to studies from the American Psychological Association, over 50% of people admit to remaining in social circles or partnerships that no longer align with their values, simply out of a fear of conflict or loneliness. This fear is understandable. None of us wants to experience judgment or make others feel excluded. But when the scales tip too far, and the effort to maintain belonging comes at the cost of your sense of self, it is time to re-examine what you really want from your connections. Dr. Brené Brown, renowned for her research on boundaries and vulnerability, highlights that individuals who are best at forming authentic connections are those who respect their own limits. In her findings, people who practice saying no or who gently distance themselves from negativity report fewer mental health challenges, higher rates of satisfaction, and richer, more fulfilling relationships. For many, this journey starts with small acts of self-assertion. Declining that invitation when you need rest, stepping back from gossip-filled conversations, or refusing to compromise your standards for fleeting acceptance. Consider Tara, a university student who often found herself emotionally depleted after weekends spent with friends who encouraged risky behavior and mocked her ambitions. She struggled with the fear that leaving the group would mean losing her identity and being alone. But when Tara finally said no and accepted the discomfort of changing her social circle, she was surprised by the doors that opened. With new energy and pride in her decisions, Tara found friends who valued her encouragement and drive. Her grades improved, her anxiety lifted, and her self-esteem flourished. Tara's story is not unique. Real social fulfillment often emerges not from seeking validation, but from finding the courage to step away when environments no longer support your growth. The heart of this chapter is not just about walking out, but about stepping toward a life that resonates with your true self. The data is promising. People who proactively set and maintain boundaries are more likely to experience decreased stress, greater confidence, and an authentic sense of freedom in their daily choices. When you realize that stepping away is a form of self-care, you empower yourself to build better relationships based on respect, not obligation. As you discover this confidence within, remember, letting go does not mean turning your back on the world, but opening your arms to what genuinely uplifts you. This chapter will inspire you to see each decision to distance with strength, not as an end, but as the joyful beginning of your proudest path yet. Choosing to step away with confidence is a transformative act that rewires not just your outer world, but the very structures of your mind. What makes this method powerfully effective is its capacity to halt cycles of emotional depletion, chronic stress, and self-abandonment that silently erode well-being. Scientific research consistently shows that psychological boundaries, knowing when to distance from people, situations, or even habits that no longer serve your highest good, are essential components of strong mental health. In a widely cited study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, researchers found that individuals who set and defended their boundaries had significantly lower rates of anxiety and depression, improved self-image, and far less susceptibility to manipulation by negative influences. This self-protection is not cold or unkind. It is the immune system of your emotional life. The logic is clear. When you allow continual exposure to toxic environments or draining relationships, your sense of self becomes increasingly blurred. You sacrifice your energy, values, and sometimes even your dignity just to preserve a fragile peace. Over time, this exchange leaves you feeling bitter, resentful, or burned out to the point of numbness. Stepping away, however, brings a rush of relief and a powerful restorative effect because it interrupts this harmful cycle. When you claim the space necessary for your peace, you send a dramatic signal to your brain. Your needs matter. Instead of scanning each moment for hints on how to gain approval, your attention shifts inward, allowing your mind and body to align around your actual desires rather than someone else's agenda. Consider the real-life story of Matteo, a mid-level manager whose career unfolded in a high-pressure corporate culture where disrespect and cutthroat competition were routine. For years, Matteo convinced himself he could handle it if he worked harder or adapted more. Yet the stress became physical. Sleeplessness, headaches, and chronic fatigue became his norm. Despite great professional success on paper, dissatisfaction shadowed Matteo's every achievement. His turning point came after a candid conversation with a therapist who helped him see that by ignoring his own boundaries, he was sacrificing not just happiness, but health. With intense resolve, Matteo began saying no to weekend emails, declining invitations to join in on toxic gossip, and seeking out collaborators instead of competitors. The effects were immediate. His anxiety dropped, his relationships improved, and for the first time in years, he experienced joy both at work and at home. This wasn't an act of defiance, but of self-preservation, and restoring his boundary allowed real growth to happen. Studies examining the neurobiology of boundary setting reinforce why this method works. Acts of deliberate separation engage the brain's reward pathways, releasing neurotransmitters like dopamine that signal achievement and satisfaction. Each time a person steps away from what is unhealthy, the brain registers an act of self-care, reinforcing the behavior and making it easier to repeat. Over weeks and months, this rewiring cultivates a greater resistance to negative influence and an increased ability to pursue and protect what is positive and nurturing. Failing to step away when necessary can trap individuals in endless cycles of self-sacrifice, undermining both progress and inner peace. Recognizing when to exit is as important as learning any vital life skill. The refusal to accept less than you deserve becomes the first link in a new chain of healthy decisions. The profound urgency is this: your life cannot be shaped by people who refuse to respect your limits. By making the conscious, sometimes difficult decision to distance yourself, you establish the foundation for a healthier, more empowered mind, a mind ready to direct every subsequent choice toward fulfillment rather than fear. If you are ready to step away from draining influences and protect your well-being, know that it starts with clarity and small, courageous actions. Begin your journey by creating quiet space for honest reflection. Take a few moments to list your interactions or environments from the past week that left you feeling exhausted, anxious, or less like yourself. Write down whose company, what situations, or what topics regularly undermine your confidence or drain your energy. Don't censor these observations. This process is just for you. Naming the source of discomfort is the first step toward change and declares that your feelings deserve respect. Next, prepare yourself with an empowering self-talk exercise. Each morning, look in the mirror or pause during your daily routine to say aloud one affirmation about your right to boundaries. Phrases like, "It is healthy to protect my peace," or "I am allowed to step away from what exhausts me." Daily repetition of these affirmations helps rewire your mindset, making it easier to act when challenging moments arise. When you know what you stand for and declare your intent, taking decisive action begins to feel less like risking disappointment and more like asserting your self-respect. Now, translate reflection into action by practicing small, low-stress distancing behaviors. You can start by politely declining one invitation that you know will leave you feeling tense, or by excusing yourself from conversations that spiral into negativity. Notice how you feel immediately after. There's a quiet sense of relief that confirms you have done something good for yourself. Each win, however minor, is momentum. Celebrate these steps, jot them down, and look for patterns where your boundaries hold strong. For situations that feel high stakes or intimidating, prepare your words and actions in advance. If you worry you might freeze in the moment, rehearse simple statements like, "I need some time for myself tonight," or "I'm choosing not to participate in this discussion." With practice, these phrases become easier to voice, and your comfort with them will grow. Visualize yourself staying grounded and calm, even if others express surprise or pushback. Remind yourself you do not need to explain or justify your needs repeatedly. The stronger your commitment to your own peace, the more confident and natural your boundaries will become. Over time, notice the feeling that starts to grow within you. A lightness, a freedom, and a sense that you no longer tiptoe through your days. Momentum gathers when you stack these small moments of bravery, and you'll begin to see that stepping away is less about loss and more about making room for supportive, energizing relationships and self-directed growth. With every respectful no that you speak, you are writing the story of a more fulfilled, peaceful, and resilient life. As you continue building the strength to step away with confidence, prepare yourself for the next natural skill: daily self-guided thinking. The next chapter will empower you with the strategies and daily techniques to protect your independence and nurture authentic, creative thought, even when surrounded by voices that try to sway you. Before moving forward, support mindset liberation by subscribing, sharing your thoughts and suggestions, or simply reflecting on your favorite insight from this chapter. Remember, every step toward protecting your peace plants one more seed for the grounded, empowered life you deserve. Chapter 4. Think for yourself daily. Every meaningful change in your life begins with a single, simple act: thinking for yourself. This may sound obvious, but in a world saturated by other people's opinions, trends, and even subconscious signals, it is a revolutionary form of courage to maintain daily independent thought. The solution we explore here is not just about resisting peer pressure. It's about developing a mental habit that places you, and only you, at the center of your decision-making process. The ability to think for yourself is a spark that lights up clarity, self-trust, and an authentic sense of direction, no matter how stormy the world around you becomes. The need for independent thought is rooted deeply in history and brain science. Expert insights confirm that groupthink, where everyone begins to echo the same opinions and stifle dissenting ideas, isn't just a phenomenon of the past, but an everyday modern event. Studies from Yale University reveal that up to 75% of people unconsciously align their views with the majority when faced with even mild, subtle social cues, often abandoning logic or personal values along the way. Yet, research also shows that individuals who make a conscious daily effort to question assumptions and pause before accepting popular beliefs are not just happier, they are also more innovative, adaptable, and far better at coping with life's challenges. This is the power of cultivating daily independent thought. It ensures that your voice does not disappear among the crowd. Stories from real life illustrate how common and transformative this practice can be. Take Amelia, a healthcare professional admired for her skills but frequently overwhelmed by protocol and pressure from colleagues to go with the flow. Early in her career, she often second-guessed her instincts, compromising her own judgment in favor of what everyone else thought was best. However, exhaustion and regret crept in, and with the encouragement of a mentor, she began to ask herself, several times a day, "What do I genuinely believe is right here?" This simple practice became a lifeline. Gradually, Amelia noticed her confidence grow and her stress decrease, as decisions were now grounded in her unique perspective and expertise rather than the shifting moods of her team. Her story is echoed in classrooms, workplaces, and homes around the world, wherever people commit to thinking for themselves. The origins of this solution can be traced to great thinkers across disciplines, all of whom highlight the necessity of self-guided thought. From philosophers to psychologists, the consensus remains. Every day you reinforce your independence, you reclaim another fraction of your inner peace. Instead of being tossed about by every strong opinion, you become an active creator of your life story. The real beauty of thinking for yourself daily is that it puts control back into your hands. It turns each moment of hesitation into an opportunity for self-discovery and self-respect. You are no longer a passive observer in your life. Every thought becomes a building block for the life you want to live. With each effort to use your own judgment, your ability to resist the pull of conformity grows stronger. It doesn't matter how many times you start over. What matters is the daily commitment to center your own voice and let your choices reflect your deepest truths. The effectiveness of daily self-guided thinking in overcoming the influence of the wrong crowd is rooted in both brain science and transformational psychology. When you commit to the habit of returning to your own mind before making a decision, you fundamentally retrain your neural pathways. Our brains are adapted for efficiency, automatically relying on social cues to conserve energy whenever possible. This is evolution's gift, yet in a modern environment bombarded with collective opinions, it can quickly turn into a curse, leaving you on autopilot and vulnerable to pressure. What makes this daily self-directed thought so powerful is its ability to interrupt that autopilot response and forge new mental habits that champion authenticity and discernment. Each act of introspection, where you pause to ask yourself what you truly believe or need, actually stimulates areas of the prefrontal cortex tied to critical thinking and emotional regulation. Numerous studies prove how game-changing this shift can be. Research from the University of Michigan demonstrates that people who systematically practice daily reflection and independent decision-making report less social anxiety, fewer regrets about their actions, and a stronger overall sense of self. In experiments, participants were tasked to detail their internal reasoning behind everyday choices, both minor, what to eat for lunch, and major, responding to peer pressure in social or work environments. After a few weeks, these individuals showed heightened resistance to negative influence and experienced a significant uptick in life satisfaction and confidence. By deliberately strengthening their internal dialogue and elevating self-awareness above external approval, they constructed a reliable safeguard against becoming lost in the noise. The real-world stories behind these statistics are even more persuasive. Consider Deshaun, a gifted high school athlete who once chased only what coaches, teammates, and friends celebrated. When a serious injury sidelined him, there was a devastating silence, where all those approving cheers once were. Deshaun fell into a spiral of doubt, convinced that without the crowd's recognition, he had nothing unique to offer. But a trusted teacher encouraged him each morning to write out his intentions for the day, what skills he wanted to cultivate, what acts of kindness meant something to him, and how he could define success for himself, apart from applause. Over several months, Deshaun shifted focus from seeking validation to shaping his own ambitions, pursuing his studies and creative outlets on his terms. The crowd's opinions slowly lost their sting, and Deshaun's own voice became not only clearer, but more compassionate and brave. What started as a survival mechanism became the foundation of a much richer sense of self. Modern psychology reiterates that the daily practice of consulting your own values and logic forms a mental buffer zone between you and outside manipulation. It allows you to pause, question, and reorient, rather than riding the momentum of whatever is loudest in the moment. Instead of fueling anxiety or second-guessing, this practice creates confidence and stability. It returns dignity to your choices by detaching your identity from the mood swings and judgments of others. The urgency of mastering this skill lies in the cost of neglect. Not thinking for yourself leaves you exposed to regrets that multiply with every concession. To claim your days for yourself, independent thought must become as habitual as breathing. When you master it, the power of the crowd to shake your peace diminishes, and your trust in your own ability to navigate life deepens immeasurably. Bringing the habit of independent thinking into your daily life isn't about upending your routine. It's about infusing small, conscious moments into every day and gradually making them second nature. Begin with a morning practice unique to you. Each day, before the noise and rush of the world come in, pause for 2 or 3 minutes to ask yourself a question out loud or in writing. What do I want most today? And what do I need to feel proud of my choices by nightfall? The phrasing doesn't need to be formal, just honest. Answering these intentions may feel awkward at first, but clarity grows with time. You will notice almost immediately that beginning the day with your voice sets a tone of self-respect and purpose, providing an anchor you can return to if doubts or pressures creep in later. Support this shift by scheduling regular self-check-ins as the day unfolds. When you catch yourself unsure, anxious, or swept up in someone else's urgency, take 30 seconds to breathe and silently ask, "What do I honestly think here?" Or, "Does this choice reflect my values?" You don't have to announce your thoughts. Just pause, listen, and respect your instincts. With repetition, those small windows for reflection become familiar triggers to think for yourself, much like a mental safety rail that keeps you steady when outside voices get loud. Try using reminders. Set your phone to prompt these questions at random times, or wear a ring or bracelet that subtly signals you to pause and check in. Each moment of awareness, however fleeting, is a win and adds to your growing confidence. To strengthen this habit further, engage in brief reflection exercises each evening. Write a sentence or two about a moment from the day, big or small, when you made a choice based on your own judgment. It could be as simple as choosing a meal you genuinely wanted or speaking up with an unpopular opinion. Recording these victories, even if minor, creates tangible evidence that you can trust your voice and move forward without second-guessing every decision. As days pass, you'll see these notes building into a personal log of triumphs, offering motivation on harder days. Another tool to try is a reflective conversation. Pick a trusted friend or mentor and ask to discuss choices brand new to you or difficult to make. Express your thoughts, listen for gentle feedback, but always come back to deciding what honestly feels right for you. Verbalizing your process not only strengthens your independence, but lets others see and respect your emerging clarity. Over time, you'll feel less pressure to agree for the sake of harmony and more excitement about expressing genuine opinions woven from your unique point of view. Progress does not require perfection, only presence and a kind persistence. Celebrate every moment you catch yourself pausing to reflect, every decision where your opinion leads, and even the times you return to self-guided thought after realizing you followed the crowd. These are not just micro-wins. They are proof that each day you're rewiring your mind for greater strength, stability, and self-direction. As you continue this journey of thinking for yourself, get ready for the next essential skill, standing firm in your beliefs when challenged. Chapter 5 will show you how to stick to what feels right, even in the face of opposition or doubt, deepening your capacity to live true to yourself. Before moving on, help support the growth of this empowering community by subscribing to Mindset Liberation, liking the content, and sharing your comments or personal breakthroughs. Every shared insight or story brings us all closer to a life guided by clear, independent, and courageous thought. Chapter 5. Stick to what feels right. At the center of true self-empowerment is one defining ability: to stick to what feels right for you, even when others challenge your resolve. While it might sound simple, the courage to persist in your beliefs, preferences, and boundaries, despite pressure or criticism, is the transformative force that turns fleeting clarity into lifelong confidence. The solution introduced in this chapter builds on the inner guidance you have been developing, taking it a bold step further. It is not just about recognizing your values or thinking for yourself in polite isolation. It is about holding fast when you face opposition or doubt, drawing power from a deep-seated sense of knowing, and feeling secure within your choices, no matter who pushes back. The origins of this solution can be traced to both the science of motivation and ancient teachings on integrity. Throughout history, philosophers have insisted that true contentment is reserved for those whose actions and beliefs align, even when that path is the loneliest or hardest. In modern psychology, the process of values congruence, living in accordance with your own beliefs under pressure, is strongly linked to higher self-esteem, improved well-being, and greater overall life satisfaction. Renowned psychologist Albert Bandura's research into self-efficacy reveals that every time a person chooses conviction over conformity, their belief in their own competence substantially increases. Another compelling study published in the Journal of Individual Differences found that individuals who stick to their guns in morally ambiguous situations experience less regret, clearer thinking, and stronger relationships in the long run. These findings are reflected in everyday realities across the globe. Imagine Lila, a young graphic designer whose friends constantly urge her to take on extra projects she doesn't want, making her fear that saying no will cost her important connections. For years, she stretched herself thin, finding solace in private but guilt in declining requests. It wasn't until Lila began to consistently honor her limits, despite some disappointment or raised eyebrows, that she saw her confidence surge. Her friendships deepened with people who truly respected her answers, and she found renewed energy for work she genuinely valued. Or think of Marcus, a manager in tech, who found himself under constant peer pressure to reward aggressive rather than collaborative behaviors. Initially going along to avoid conflict, Marcus realized his work satisfaction plummeted as he strayed from his original intention to foster inclusivity. It was only when he returned to what felt right, setting new policies that prioritized teamwork, that not only his mood but also his team morale visibly lifted. What these examples and the science behind them prove is simple. The act of sticking to what feels right forms the backbone of self-respect and resilience. By repeatedly following through on decisions that reflect your truth, you train your mind to trust itself. You dispel the power of doubt and external judgment, and you create an inner foundation capable of withstanding storms. The happiest, most fulfilled people are not those who always appease others, but those who protect their well-being by staying true to what resonates within. This chapter will guide you to turn inner conviction into unshakable action, arming you with the strength to walk steadily forward, no matter who or what stands in your way. Persistence in what feels right is not merely a personality trait, but a fundamental psychological shield against the corrosive pull of groupthink and the anxiety that comes from living in discord with oneself. This method is astonishingly effective because it tackles the pivotal moments when our resolve is tested, those small or large instances when we are most tempted to waver. Neuroscientific studies show that when individuals act in alignment with their beliefs, the brain's reward centers light up with satisfaction and confidence, reinforcing the behavior and creating a loop that makes future conviction easier. Oppositely, when people ignore their values to please others, the brain registers this as a subtle but real form of stress, which over time erodes self-esteem and weakens emotional resilience. In essence, each decision to stand firm provides a neurobiological benefit that accumulates with repetition. Consider the transformation of Carter, a longtime employee at a family business, who for years deferred to his relatives' preferences on key business decisions, even when he sensed their approaches would prove costly. Carter's father and brother were dominant personalities, and Carter dreaded disappointing them or bearing the brunt of an argument. As a result, he watched projects fail, relationships suffer, and his own energy drain, all while burying mounting regret. During a particularly difficult year, Carter attended a workshop about resilience and learned that self-respect and stress management were deeply entangled with the ability to assert beliefs calmly but unswervingly. Inspired but apprehensive, he decided to practice, starting with one clear but low-stakes decision that reflected his own rationale. When challenged, he explained his thought process respectfully, but did not yield. To his surprise, not only did the world not collapse, but afterward he felt a sharp release of tension and a flood of renewed self-regard. From that moment on, Carter gradually practiced saying what he meant and sticking by it, even in bigger matters. With each small success, the anxiety that had haunted him receded. His father and brother, after initial pushback, began to consult him on long-term strategy, realizing that his perspective improved results. Carter's satisfaction and autonomy soared, and relationships became more balanced, anchored by mutual appreciation instead of resentment or fear. What Carter experienced is powerfully supported by studies published by the Association for Psychological Science. Participants who resisted social pressure to compromise core beliefs were not only more satisfied with their lives, but scored higher on evaluations of authenticity, lower on measures of chronic anxiety, and reported a deeper sense of purpose. This gripping evidence underscores why learning to stick to what feels right is not just morally admirable, but mentally critical. It breaks cycles of passive regret and powerless compliance. Instead of reliving moments where you caved or doubted, you cultivate a growing archive of times you defended your perspective without hostility, just clear assurance. Each act, big or small, builds the inner proof that you can handle opposition and stay fully grounded. Over time, this confidence transforms your responses to both trivial and major challenges, translating self-understanding and principle into more meaningful achievements and deeper, more honest connections. This is a practice of active defense, one that hands you back every ounce of agency the wrong crowd might try to steal. Turning your intentions into true conviction is not some grand overnight leap. It's about taking steady, practical actions that remind you what real confidence feels like. Start by anchoring yourself in small daily decisions. Every morning, pick one situation that might come up: a social conversation, a work task, or a question from a friend, where you felt pressure in the past to act against your better judgment. Take a quiet moment to imagine holding your ground. Visualize what it sounds like to calmly state, "This is what feels right for me," or simply say, "No, thank you," with warmth but certainty. This mental rehearsal primes your mind, so when the moment actually arrives, your resolve has already been mapped out and feels familiar rather than intimidating. Throughout the day, look for opportunities to follow through, even in seemingly minor choices. Speak up when you prefer a different restaurant, express your genuine thoughts on a group project, or gently refuse an invitation if you need rest instead. These small wins are monuments in building self-respect. Each time you honor what feels right, even when it's just picking the soundtrack for your morning drive, you send a clear signal to your subconscious that your preferences are valuable. Record these successes, however modest, in a notebook or on your phone. At first, your list may seem trivial, but you'll be amazed at how quickly these wins gather into evidence that you really can trust yourself. When you encounter stronger resistance, deploy the pause and affirm technique. Instead of reacting defensively or caving, pause for a single deep breath. Silently anchor yourself with an affirmation like, "I trust my judgment," or "It's okay to protect my boundaries." Next, articulate your position politely and directly without feeling the need to over-explain or soften your stance excessively. For example, "I appreciate your opinion, but this is important to me," keeps your communication respectful and firm. The more you practice this step, the easier it becomes to stay steady when faced with opposition. Notice that you don't have to win every debate. What matters is you didn't lose yourself along the way. Reflection at the end of each day provides closure and prepares you for ongoing growth. Review any moment you stood your ground, no matter the result, and congratulate yourself for prioritizing what was right for you over temporary approval. Remind yourself that progress is not always measured by immediate applause. It's felt over time in the increased peace and self-trust that grows from every single act of conviction. If you stumble, don't berate yourself. Instead, gently investigate what made it hard and visualize choosing differently next time. Consistency is built not on being perfect, but on being persistent and compassionate with yourself as you stretch these muscles. With repeated practice, sticking to what feels right will shift from something you brace for to something that feels like second nature, woven into your self-identity. As you build this foundation, get ready to discover a new level of freedom. In the next chapter, you'll learn how to connect with people who genuinely support your growth and aspirations, and how to find the right community who shares your values. If these strategies encourage you, let Mindset Liberation know by subscribing, sharing your comments, or offering your ideas for how we can evolve together. Every personal story helps this community thrive and gives others courage to follow their own right wherever it leads. Chapter 6. Find your kind of people. The company you keep is a mirror and a magnifier of your true self. When you surround yourself with people who understand and nurture your authentic values, your personal growth accelerates, and your resolve to maintain a healthy mindset skyrockets. This chapter is about a transformative solution that many overlook: the powerful act of deliberately finding and cultivating community where you feel seen, respected, and inspired. Rather than passively accepting the social circles handed to you by circumstance, proactively building meaningful connections is one of the most effective ways to insulate yourself from the wrong crowd's influence and anchor yourself in the life you truly want. The origins of this idea are woven throughout the social sciences, psychology, and even evolutionary biology. Human beings are fundamentally wired for connection, but the quality of those connections determines whether we bloom or wither. Researchers at Harvard University, through their celebrated adult development study, have shown that meaningful social bonds are one of the strongest predictors of happiness, health, and emotional resilience over a lifetime. People who reported belonging to supportive, like-minded communities experienced lower rates of depression, greater self-esteem, and a dramatically reduced vulnerability to negative social pressure. Dr. Emma Seppala, a leading researcher at Yale, emphasizes that friendship chosen purposefully, based on values and mutual encouragement, actually changes the brain, making individuals more courageous and willing to hold on to their authenticity in the face of outside challenges. This explains why even just one true ally can be the difference between wavering and thriving. Consider the journey of Darius, who moved across the country for a new job and found himself adrift in a city where he knew no one. The first few months were filled with loneliness, and he instinctively gravitated toward the most readily available colleagues. However, their interests and approach to work contrasted sharply with Darius's passion for creativity and honest conversation. Initially, he felt pressured to blend in, suppressing his ideas just to fit into this mismatched group. But when Darius began to explore art clubs and joined online communities where members shared his enthusiasm for personal growth, everything shifted. He started spending time with people who challenged him to be adventurous, celebrated his accomplishments, and listened without judgment. The newfound sense of belonging gave Darius the courage to voice his true opinions at work and finally break the cycle of people-pleasing. His energy, focus, and self-trust flourished as he realized he didn't need to mold himself for acceptance. He simply needed to find acceptance among his kind of people. Stories like Darius's are echoed in countless lives. The truth is, most people move through seasons where old circles no longer fit, but worry that seeking something new means starting over or standing out. However, studies and lived experiences alike show that you are never more empowered than when you belong to a community that lifts you higher. Actively choosing nurturing connections supplies a deep well of encouragement and mutual accountability that no self-help practice can fully provide on its own. As you discover, nurture, and invest in real friendships built on respect and affirmation, loneliness and insecurity begin to fade, replaced with the invigorating strength to pursue your best, most fearless life. Choosing who surrounds you is an art and a science, and its impact on your mindset and direction cannot be overstated. The reason this method is so effective is that it operates on both psychological and physiological levels, fundamentally reshaping the way you experience belonging, safety, and self-expression. Studies in social neuroscience reveal that our brains are constantly registering social feedback, and the presence of supportive people physically reduces levels of cortisol, the hormone associated with stress, while boosting the production of oxytocin and endorphins. This biological shift doesn't just feel good, it creates ideal internal conditions for calm deliberation, independent thought, and authentic living. In practical terms, when you intentionally join groups or seek out friendships that reflect your deepest values, you radically decrease the odds of falling into toxic patterns of conformity or self-abandonment. Scientific evidence is strikingly clear on the point. One landmark study from the University of Notre Dame tracked adults as they moved cities, changed jobs, or re-established relationships over several years. Those who actively sought out and maintained value-aligned friendships were over 50% less likely to experience periods of major depression, while also reporting stronger optimism and higher resilience when faced with external challenges. What stands out in the research is the protective effect of genuine community. It buffers against peer pressure by offering validation, advice, and emotional safety, especially when tested by difficult circumstances. By contrast, people who linger in misaligned circles, even out of habit or convenience, are at a greater risk for poor self-esteem, repeated burnout, and an unshakable sense of loneliness that persists no matter how many acquaintances they have. A powerful example of this principle can be seen in the story of Lynn, a marketing executive who for years operated in social and professional worlds driven by fierce competition and constant one-upmanship. Though outwardly successful, Lynn privately struggled with anxiety and felt a chronic disconnect between her real interests and those accepted by her peer group. It wasn't until her therapist gently encouraged her to experiment by attending networking meetups for ethical business professionals and mindfulness workshops that Lynn began to discover how transformative the right environment could be. Within months of making these changes, she found herself sharing ideas freely, laughing more easily, and drawing in new friends who truly understood her ambitions. As she deepened these relationships, Lynn noticed an inner switch flipping. Critical voices faded, she developed stronger boundaries, and her capacity for creative risk and honest feedback grew. Most importantly, Lynn's confidence in her judgment and vision no longer hinged on constant reinvention or the fear of exclusion. The data and real-life transformations outline an urgent truth. Whether you are healing from the influence of the wrong crowd or simply seeking to fortify your authentic self, deliberate community building offers measured, reliable protection. It counteracts isolation, but more importantly, builds a foundation where challenge and change feel safe rather than threatening. Internalizing a sense of us that truly matches your core self dissolves insecurity, sharpens your inner compass, and accelerates your journey toward all the goals your previous environment may have made seem out of reach. In a world driven by connection, the kind you choose is the kind that shapes your future. Let this serve as a reason not to delay, but to recognize and seek the circles that will launch, not limit, your growth. The process of finding your kind of people is both empowering and practical, and you can begin taking steps today that will tip the balance of your life toward deeper connection and growth. Start by reflecting on your core interests, values, and goals. These are your personal magnets, the qualities that will help you identify genuine connections. Take 10 minutes in a quiet space to list traits that matter most to you in friendships. Maybe kindness, ambition, creativity, honesty, or the willingness to challenge each other positively. Naming these preferences helps clarify what to look for and sets your intention to welcome different, more aligned energy into your circle. With this clarity, set a gentle goal to step outside your current comfort zone just once this week. Seek out a group, community, or event, even if it's virtual, that centers around something meaningful to you. Research for a local club, discussion group, creative meetup, or online forum rooted in your passions or curiosities. Don't worry about finding the perfect fit right away. The real victory lies in showing up. Whether you join a hiking club, a book discussion, or a volunteer opportunity, simply being present where values overlap gives you the first taste of what purposeful community can feel like. The small win is feeling what it's like to be among people who speak a similar emotional language. Soak in this shift and notice how even brief interactions with like-minded individuals can re-energize your sense of self. Practice active curiosity in your conversations. Ask open questions, share your real story instead of defaulting to old scripts, and listen for that spark of resonance or excitement. Catch yourself if you slip into old patterns of pleasing just to fit in, and gently redirect yourself to explore what honest engagement could look like instead. This isn't about performing or impressing, but about collecting clues and connections that will, over time, build into a network that genuinely supports your growth. After each new connection, jot down a reflection. What did you notice in your mood, your openness, and your sense of possibility after the interaction? This exercise is evidence that you are moving closer to where you belong. One practical technique to accelerate progress is to calibrate your social calendar each week. Drop one obligation that leaves you drained and replace it, as best you can, with a person or group that lifts you higher. It could be a call with an old friend who encourages you, or coffee with a new acquaintance who shares your aspirations. Each deliberate swap helps retrain your mind to seek and prioritize positive community rather than drift by default. Remember, even one meaningful interaction can create momentum. Allow yourself to celebrate each connection, however small, for what it represents, the beginning of a more intentional and fulfilling social landscape. The more you engage and experiment, the more natural it becomes to find and nurture your people. In time, this new tribe ministers not just to your social needs, but also protects your independence and inspires you to keep rising beyond your old limits. As you gently rework your social world, get ready for the next natural evolution on your journey, how to persevere along your path, even when challenged or tempted to go backwards. Chapter 7 will show you how to keep walking your way, even in the face of setbacks or uncertainty. If today's insights encourage you to try new steps in community building, share your experiences in the comments, subscribe to Mindset Liberation, or let us know what kind of support helps you most. Every story, suggestion, and moment of momentum adds strength to our growing community and brings us all closer to a network where everyone finds their people. Chapter 7. Keep walking your way. True transformation is less about radical moments of change and more about the quiet, persistent determination to keep walking your own path, step after step, no matter how winding or uncertain the way becomes. This chapter unveils a powerful solution often missed by those seeking instant answers, the practice of everyday perseverance, not just starting your journey toward authenticity, but intentionally sticking with it despite external setbacks, distractions, or periods of self-doubt. It is the daily act of recommitting to your direction, even when progress feels invisible or the pressures of the crowd return sharper than ever. In a culture obsessed with instant results and visible milestones, this steady resolve is a radical kind of self-respect. The origins of this method are deeply rooted in both psychology and personal development. Experts like Dr. Angela Duckworth, whose celebrated research on grit at the University of Pennsylvania changed how we define success, emphasized that sustained perseverance is a stronger predictor of long-term achievement than almost any other trait, including talent or IQ. Duckworth's large-scale studies in education, athletics, and business confirm that those who learn to keep walking after obstacles enjoy greater satisfaction, motivation, and emotional resilience than those who seek only fast wins. Statistically, individuals who set small, realistic goals and build consistency, even in the face of setbacks, are more likely to reach their intended destinations and maintain well-being over time. Real-life stories of determined perseverance make these findings tangible. Consider the experience of Nina, a former nonprofit worker who left a draining environment and set out to build a new career in writing. The excitement of starting fresh was soon tempered by months of scarce opportunities and well-meaning friends urging her to be practical and return to familiar work. But Nina drew strength from daily rituals that anchored her progress, keeping a small victories notebook, seeking encouragement from others on similar journeys, and constantly reminding herself why she chose her unique path. While self-doubt returned often and the old crowd's opinions never fully disappeared, Nina's ability to keep moving forward, step by determined step, eventually led her to success. She landed her first book deal nearly 2 years after leaving her job, success that would have been impossible without her commitment to persevere, even on days a breakthrough felt impossibly far away. This research and these stories reveal a truth that too many overlook. The ability to keep walking your way is the security that turns all your previous efforts into lasting change. You don't have to be the fastest, the loudest, or the most confident to reach fulfillment. What matters is returning to your purpose after every stumble, learning from detours, and choosing again and again to walk forward for yourself. It's this hopeful, forward-focused mindset, the daily act of renewal and self-encouragement, that guarantees you don't lose yourself, even in the loudest crowd or the longest storm. This is your assurance that regardless of pace or applause, your progress is real and your path is truly your own. Sticking with your journey, especially after the novelty fades and uncertainty sets in, is more than a mindset. It's a powerful process for rewriting your internal script and protecting your personal transformation from erosion by the expectations and doubts of others. Perseverance, particularly the kind that is chosen and cultivated day after day, offers a proven psychological shield against one of the greatest dangers to real change: the creeping urge to revert to old patterns when progress slows or opposition grows. This method is intensely effective because it keeps your energy and attention directed forward rather than diluted by frustration, impatience, or external noise. With repeated, steady commitment, your brain's neural pathways adapt to view consistency, not just rapid wins, as a source of satisfaction and pride, making future setbacks less likely to derail your momentum. Scientific studies support the enormous value of ongoing effort in maintaining self-authored growth. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology followed participants attempting to develop new habits, change careers, or recover from disappointing relationships. Those who implemented systems of daily recommitment, like journaling their intentions, reflecting on progress, and visualizing their goals, were significantly more likely to avoid self-sabotaging behaviors such as quitting prematurely, abandoning goals at the first setback, or returning to unhealthy environments. In other words, individuals who regularly acknowledge their progress and re-embrace their direction, no matter how many times they stumbled, dramatically increase their chances of meaningful, lasting change. The story of Faye, a teacher who overcame years of self-doubt and the subtle influence of dismissive colleagues, provides striking evidence of how powerful persistence truly is. Faye experienced periods of loneliness and second-guessing after she decided to lead her classroom with more creativity and compassion rather than strict adherence to established routines. Colleagues whispered that her approach was risky, and she sometimes found herself considering a retreat to the old ways, just for peace of mind. What turned the tide was a steady morning routine of writing down her most important reasons for choosing her unique method and mapping tiny steps she had successfully taken the day before. Each time she faced discouragement, Faye returned to these lists and reminded herself that the progress, however slow or small, still belonged to her. The months passed and her confidence outlasted her doubts. Soon her students began to flourish, parents noticed a difference, and her once critical colleagues became curious about her results. This kind of perseverance works, not because it removes every struggle, but because it builds a resilient foundation from which you can safely learn, adapt, and move forward. Each time you continue, despite failures, criticism, or lack of instant reward, you prove to yourself that your journey rests in your hands. Your ability to keep walking despite setbacks dulls the fear of what others may think, weakening the wrong crowd's grip on your choices and renewing your trust in unfolding at your natural pace. More than simple willpower, this is engagement with your own life, an active shaping of not just what you achieve, but who you quietly become in the shaping. When you hardwire persistence into your routine, you transform one small act of courage into a legacy of change, and slowly the distance between who you are and who you want to be disappears. Carrying your progress forward, even through doubt or slow chapters, requires more than sheer force of will. It is a skill you refine with practical action, daily reflection, and gentle encouragement. Begin your morning by setting an intention that genuinely resonates with you, not just a task to check off, but a clear why behind your efforts. Write your intention on a sticky note or a journal page, a reminder that today, no matter what interruptions or discouragements arise, you are walking your way at your pace. Returning to this intention when you feel yourself slipping or feeling pressured infuses your actions with purpose, turning empty routine into meaningful movement. Anchor your determination by tracking your smallest wins, since perseverance is most easily built through noticing micro-victories rather than waiting for dramatic milestones. Create a daily log on your phone or on paper, marking each time you made a choice in line with your goals, however minor: a meal decision, quick exercise session, a courageous conversation, or even a moment of resisting old habits. Each entry becomes a thread in the fabric of your developing discipline, showing that progress isn't about perfection, but about collecting proof that each day you keep moving, even a little, even quietly, toward the person you want to become. Revisit these logs whenever you hit turbulent patches. There is immense power in seeing evidence of your own forward motion. To strengthen your ability to bounce back from setbacks, practice reframing each stumble as feedback, not failure. At the end of your day, spend 5 minutes honestly debriefing yourself. Where did you encounter resistance, criticism, or a lapse in confidence? Within each of these moments, search for the lesson. Did pressure from others catch you off guard? Did you wish you'd spoken up for yourself? Without judgment or harshness, note an idea for what you'll try next time. Perhaps a new phrase, a gentler approach to self-encouragement, or a reminder to breathe before you decide. The more you respond to your struggles with curiosity, the faster you develop resilience. Perseverance grows each time you choose to keep walking after realigning, not just after things go right. Plan regular renewal rituals, weekly moments set aside just to check your progress, celebrate your persistence, and rekindle your motivation. This can be as simple as reviewing your journal with a favorite snack, sharing good moments with a friend or mentor, or even taking a walk to reflect on a week's progress. By making celebration part of your routine, you remind yourself that sustained effort is worthy of pride, and you train your mind to crave the satisfaction found in consistency and faithfulness to your course. If you ever find the journey daunting or slow, remember you are not walking alone. Countless others are also learning to withstand distraction and doubt in order to build a life they love. Each quiet victory is a stone on the path you lay for yourself, adding up over time to deep confidence and unwavering identity. As you continue collecting these steady wins, the crowds and setbacks that once threatened your growth fade in importance, replaced by a sense of power and ownership over your story. Keep these routines alive, and your ability to persevere will continually grow stronger, no matter what lies ahead. As you have discovered through each chapter of this book, breaking free from unhealthy influences and reclaiming ownership of your journey requires courage, intention, and consistent self-honesty. We explored how to recognize the hidden pressures that shape our choices, define and anchor ourselves in core values, step away from draining environments, practice daily independent thinking, and stand firm in our beliefs. You have learned how to seek out supportive communities that fuel authentic growth and how to persevere along your unique path, even in the face of setbacks or doubt. These insights and techniques are more than isolated strategies. They are stepping stones toward a life lived on your terms, where mental clarity, fulfillment, and self-respect are not just possibilities, but daily realities. Thank you for investing your time and energy in your own transformation with Mindset Liberation. Every act of reflection, courage, or connection that you make adds to a ripple effect reaching far beyond yourself. If these insights inspired you, please remember to like, leave a comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribe to the channel for more empowering guidance. Your growth helps shape a stronger, more authentic community for all.